we all saw Nightmare Before Christmas growing up. I remember this was something I played on VHS ad nauseum, to my parents' dismay, over and over again when I was a kid, and I loved it. And it's been a few years since I've seen it, and I always wondered how well it held up. What do you think?
Holds up extremely well.
You have some thoughts that you wrote down. Why don't we?
First of all, what I wanted to say is that Henry Selick, the director of it, he's a magician. I just found the camera work to be really interesting, and all of the effects with because it's physical, like claymation, right?
This film is a better directed musical than a lot of the musicals that have come out in the last 30 years.
I think it might be the best musical movie of all time. I would go on record saying that.
Going with the camera movement that you were talking about, there's it's iconic now, the shot with him going over the ledge of that little hill, right, with that has that curl on it against the moon, and just the way that the camera is moving around him, and you have the moon in the background, and there's this kind of parallax effect, I guess. It just gives it such scale, and you don't see that in a lot of that use of scale in a lot of modern musicals.
Yeah, I think that's why I called him a magician, because he almost feels like he's doing magic, which that's kind of how film was from the very beginning. And it seems like, maybe with some modern films, or we might have sort of lost the sauce a little bit of that sort of magic element to filmmaking. But he has, like you said, like the parallax effect that happens with like the moon and the hill, and in relation to like how the camera's moving around the characters and the choreography of the characters, the way it's done is done in such like it feels like a magician. It feels like there's these tricks he's using that are like messing with my mind in like a really fantastical, fun way.
And it works so well with this German expressionist setting, which, when you're a 6-year-old kid watching this, you don't appreciate that, but it just adds such character to this film, and like I said when we kind of talked briefly after the film ended, the script is so efficient. There's no wasted time on anything, and I think the same is with the visuals. Everything is very well thought out, so everything is there for a purpose. There's not a wasted frame. There's not a wasted character moment. Even the side characters, they add little visual humor to it, like the guy in the hat. That's such like a nice little visual gag. There's tons of those, and I think that goes to what you were saying about Selick being a magician. Yeah,
absolutely. And another thing I liked, there's just so many interesting uses of forced perspective mixed in with that German expressionism that just adds
like Jack's house.
Yeah, like his house
on
the hill, and even in the song "What's This," when he shows up in Christmas Land for the first time,
right?
When he like lands on the ice, and it like the camera pans or tilts upward and pans a little bit. It's like all the houses are going into each other. There's like 4 houses going into each other, and it's cool how it like directs your eyes. It directs your eyes directly to his head, like being in the middle of the houses, like meeting a point. So it's just like, it's crazy. And I imagine that when you're doing like a stop motion animation, you have to be overly meticulous about every little visual detail. You have to be as efficient as possible.
Having done some very rudimentary stop motion myself.
You have?
Yeah. I did a music video earlier this year that was paper cutout. But even for my sloppy kind of process, it takes forever to do it.
I bet.
because uh, traditionally you don't do 24 frames for stop motion, it's 12.
Mm-hmm.
But even then, if you want something that's like 5 minutes long, that's thousands of pictures that you're taking one at a time.
Yeah.
So it takes a long time to make a stop motion film. I don't know how long it took them to do this. Probably a couple of years at least.
Yeah, at least.
Of just working around the clock, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that this film really benefited from that thought, the thought process that goes into planning something that meticulously and because you have to. And I think that a lot of live action filmmakers would benefit from taking the time to think about all those elements because of the opportunity for more interesting blocking, camera movements, visual humor. There was some great visual gags in this, as I said before.
Absolutely, and like to also support how I made the claim that this might be the greatest musical movie of all time. The choreography is so perfect. I love that there's a part where Jack Skellington is up in his home and he's locked himself in because he's doing all these different experiments. And they're singing Something's Up with Jack. That song starts and like all the townspeople are singing it. And I like that the vampires are there. And then as the sun comes up, as the light gets closer to them, it's part of their dance choreography to put their cloaks up and like sort of slide to their right. And as soon as they slide to their right and exit the frame, a new character enters the frame right there. And the camera follows them. And it's just so interesting how the choreography and the lighting and the set design all are working together in tandem, right? And they're working together as a part of the choreography.
It's so precise.
Yeah, sometimes when you think of dance choreography or choreography, you think of just subjects, right? Or characters, people. But in this case, it's every visual element, the lighting and the production.
And this is one of those things in filmmaking where you don't necessarily notice it.
Mm-hmm.
The audience doesn't necessarily notice it because it's working well, because it's not sticking out.
Exactly.
But like editing, you notice bad editing usually more than you notice good editing.
Yeah.
So that's why it might be hard for people to appreciate it as much unless they're really looking for it.
Yeah.
Because it's a kids movie, it's a Disney movie, but it's just amazing how well thought out it was.
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like Disney would never make this film today.
No, they wouldn't. I don't think they would,
even though they've made millions of dollars off of all of the IP merchandising that they've done with this film. So much. Think about how many things, how much nightmare
I know
merchandise there is out there.
I was just at Disneyland this last week on Wednesday, and they still decorate Haunted Mansion there for the holiday season as Nightmare Before Christmas mashup.
And this is one very short feature that came out
1999, 2000, something.
It was early 90s. It was like 94.
Or was it really that far?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Not a franchise.
Yeah, not a franchise.
But the design is so iconic. I'm using that word again, but it's true.
No, it is. It's so unique.
You can recognize even the silhouette of Jack very easily. It's just so well done. I don't know. Yeah. I can't say it enough how impressive it is.
Yeah,
really.
And I was in the shop there at Disneyland, and it's all Nightmare Before Christmas stuff right now, since it's like between Halloween and Christmas, and there's items that are $60 T-shirts that are sold out because people just love the aesthetic so much.
Exactly.
And it's held a place in like people's hearts for so long.
And hearts is an interesting thing because even though there's some macabre imagery in the film, it also feels in a strange way more authentically Disney than a lot of films that have come out in the last 20, especially the last 10 years from Disney, in that I felt there's an emotional resonance in this. The film resonated with me on an emotional level, though in a way that, I mean, I don't keep up with a lot of Disney films, but the ones that I've seen in the last decade haven't really affected me on an emotional level. And even this, not just, Jack is having this basically a midlife crisis. And losing connection with himself, and I think it's very relatable. And Danny Elfman's music and his voice as Jack, there's something very touchingly vulnerable about his delivery.
I mean, the first song he sings, even though this is a kids movie, it has like an existential quality to it.
Exactly, it's that midlife crisis.
He says there's an empty place in my bones, right? Yeah, it's like what he's singing.
It's feeling like, am I wasting my life away doing this?
Yeah,
basically.
Even though he's good at it.
Yeah, exactly. Right? And it's really interesting because we don't see that kind of story often, of somebody who feels like they're in a rut.
Yeah.
Even though they've accomplished a lot, they feel like there's something missing in their life, and they just need to rediscover their joy for that thing.
Yeah, and it's interesting that we're in such a unique landscape, because as soon as we're introduced to it, we're like, wow, look at this place, Halloween Town, like how amazing. And you're expecting other characters to share that emotion, and they do, the townspeople do. We're with the townspeople in that opening song. We're like, yeah, this is so cool, right? This is awesome. And then Jack is the flip side. He's just like, I'm so bored with all of this.
Yeah.
And as the audience, you're just like, oh, we just got introduced to this crazy, awesome world. And and our main character hates it, it seems, or doesn't appreciate it.
Exactly. And I thought they did a great job with the romantic subplot.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because I feel like today you need a lot of backstory and explanation for these kind of things. But, the film managed to do it with just Sally looking at Jack longingly, and that's 90% of it.
That's 90% of the best romance movies, if you ask me, is the longing looks.
Yeah, but it worked so well, and it's just so efficiently done.
Yeah, and because she's like a Frankenstein type creation, she herself has an empty feeling that she's meant for something more. And so they both have interesting existential drives within them to find their place in the world. And I think the romantic subplot really works here, because sometimes while a romantic subplot might just be thrown in, this one works perfectly with his whole arc and the theme of the film.
Because like you were saying, she's sort of a foil to him.
Yeah, and also he has, it's one of those situations where the grass is always greener on the other side, right? And he never notices her until the end, and that's just kind of like his appreciation for Halloween Town. It doesn't come until the end, because the whole film, he is so shut off and disconnected from who he is, from other people, because he's so fixated on this new thing that he doesn't even realize what he already has right in front of him, right? The town, Sally, right? And being the Pumpkin King. All these things that he doesn't appreciate that he already has. He just wants what he can't have. And so, but I like that it's interesting that in the end, that's why the romantic subplot works really well, in my opinion, because he comes to appreciate the things he does have, the things that are right there. And
it adds to the story,
exactly,
as opposed to being a distraction from
exactly,
it.
Yeah.
Was there something else you wanted to mention?
Nice work, Bone Daddy. I just love that line.
There's a lot of great humor in
Yeah.
the film. I was laughing a lot.
Just the way it's great dialogue because it's the way they're talking. They don't need to explain who they are or where they're from. It's the way that they talk that
it fits
expresses
with the
them.
Character.
Exactly.
It
Everyone
feels
talks-
very character specific.
Exactly. And I love the mayor character.
Yeah,
I
the
love
two-faced politician. Yeah.
Exactly. I love that he has two faces.
I definitely didn't get that as a 6-year-old.
I definitely get it now, though. I like when he's knocking on Jack's door. Jack, I'm only an elected official. I can't, be expected to make decisions by myself. He says. I love that line.
That was good. Yeah.
So just all the little like small bits of humor and all the side characters is wonderful. Even the things the vampires say that are playing off the stereotypes of vampires, or the witches, or the werewolf, right?
It feels so alive.
It does.
With all these little side characters.
Yeah.
Because it leans into these archetypes, basically.
Exactly. It plays off the archetypes perfectly, and it adds so much to the life and the environment of the film.
Yeah. When I was a kid, I always hoped they would make another movie where he went through some of the other doors.
You want to know what's funny is when I was a kid, because I loved theme parks and stuff like that, and I loved the Haunted Mansion and the Nightmare Before Christmas Haunted Mansion, I remember in my grandparents' house when I was in elementary school, I came up with blueprints about how we were going to have a ride for every holiday that Jack would take over.
Nice.
And everything like that. So yeah, so mine was a theme park ride.
Nice.
That I thought of not. And I meticulously like drew out all these different things, and I was like, yes, and then we can go through the Valentine's Day door, and then it'll look like this in that world.
Disney, if you're taking notes.
If you're taking notes. Yeah.
Please make this ride happen.
Yeah, so I like holiday mashups things. Even though this is not related to Disney, but at Universal Studios Halloween Horror Nights, I loved when they did the Holidays in Hell.
Oh yeah.
It felt kind of felt inspired a little bit maybe by this. The way everything gets turned upside down by Halloween.
I had a friend who worked in that. He said it was awful because it was in the tent.
Yeah, it's a hot tent.
No
air conditioning.
No air conditioning, no airflow.
Yes.
Just stagnant, hot, humid air.
I know what that's like.
People breathing in it, and they had some kind of like rancid turkey smell. In one of the rooms
area, right? Yeah.
So it was just being in that for hours.
Yeah, that's horrendous.
Yeah. He managed to get on Terror Tram and
nice.
Stuck on that.
Much better.
Yeah, he was happy because he got to get off work early.
Yeah,
Terror Tram closes early. Yeah, it's called Tim Burton's Nightmare. It's obvious that he had a huge influence on it. I think the director should get more credit, but I do think it's obviously a Tim Burton project. It has his look all over it. He was supposed to direct it originally.
Mm-hmm. So, do you know why he didn't end up directing it?
I think he was busy with another film, maybe Batman Returns or something. I don't remember.
Yes, and also to credit the other writers as well who did a great job, because even though the story's by Tim Burton, I believe the screenwriters were Michael McDowell and Caroline Thompson.
Yeah, they did a fantastic job. The script is really fantastic, yeah.
Yeah, and Caroline Johnson, she has a great grasp on his style because she also was credited as a writer for like Edward Scissorhands.
Okay.
She also was a writer on the 1991 Addams Family film.
Oh,
so she gets this vibe.
Yeah, you go.
She's the perfect person to be a part of the writing process in this film.
Yes, so, yeah. Hot topic horror.
So yeah. Well, this has been a fun, spooky, good Christmas time with you, Kyle.
Yeah, likewise.
Thank you for joining us on Jake and Kyle's Spooky Good Time.
Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe.
All right.
Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good fright.
I hope you aren't saying that in June.